What's up, guys? I'm Uncle Freedom, coming to you on a glorious and well-deserved day off. And today we're going to talk about something that I've hinted at recently, and that is the Rapid Force duty holster from Alien Gear. So first off, what is the Rapid Force duty holster? Well, it's a duty holster that's providing level 3 retention, which is kind of a big deal, for use on duty belts, battle belts, or, as you'll see later, some other options. I know, right? It's an Alien Gear, and believe me, I was in that boat. I was like, it's an Alien Gear. Like, how? Have you seen some of Alien Gear stuff? But I was very impressed. I reached out to Alien Gear, kind of told them what I wanted to do, what I wanted to see. They sent one out for me to check out, and I fell in love. But what makes it different? What made it so that it was such a good option for me? The retention devices that are on it are really cool, the way they're designed. They're very stable, very fast. The QD system is a lot cooler than we give it credit for. It's very fast, but it's also very, very, very secure, which is really cool. It's very modular, as you're going to see in this video, some of the stuff we can and can't do with it. It offers really good optics protection, which is something that is lacking in something like a Safariland. It's incredibly just well done, and two things that are really cool to me is an open bottom design, which if you've ever worked outside or gotten into a fight, stuff being able to pass through your holster and not stay in the bottom of the holster, really, really big deal. And it also offers something for my law enforcement guys, which is Axon integration, which is really cool, and it is the way of the future. So what do they make this thing for? If you've got a SIG or you've got a Glock, you're in luck. If you don't, well, you're going to be waiting. I know Mojo kind of alluded to the fact that the V3s would fit a staccato, and eventually they will do an option for that. But I have it on very good authority, being people at the company, that the initial V3s that fit the staccato was more of an anomaly than the rule. They also make these for no lights, so if you don't run a light, they make them for compact lights only, and they make them for full-size lights as well. As far as the SIGs go, you get the 320 series itself. As far as Glocks go, 17, 19, 22, 23, and the 22 and 23 are Gen 4 only. They don't do the Gen 5 because they're a little different dimensionally. The 45, the 47, right? So our standard duty pistols that we would look for, this is going to offer an option for us that's going to have great retention, be very fast, and a very tough option, as it were. But a really awesome point, though, and something I fell in love with, which I'll roll B-roll into this at some point, something like this guy. So this is the V3. One of the cool things, this is for the full-size light option. What's really awesome, though, for me, is if you're running an X300 turbo, we're clear, by the way. Also, I'm in a safe area of my home, which I maintenance firearms and dry fire. There's Kevlar paneling behind the camera, so if I point this thing at you, it won't get you, I promise. But it will actually work for this system here. This full-size light version will work for pretty much any full-size weapon light. Even if you're running something crazy like the Enforce Wilds, it will work for it. The only full-size light this will not actually work with is the TLR2, which would be the laser, the integrated laser TLR1. And then the compact light, the one that wouldn't work, would be the TLR8, which is the laser version for the TLR7. It's just cool. So if you have like a niche light, you know, a nightstick or something like that, maybe you can't afford to jump into the X300 train, or you don't have a TLR1 for whatever reason, you've got a light you really like, odds are it's going to fit in this, as long as you don't have one of those with the built-in laser. I mean, it's a cool option. It really is. And you notice from the bottom of this guy, we are fully open, which is chef's kiss. So let's talk a little bit about Axon integration. For those of you that are not law enforcement, you have no idea why that would be important. For my law enforcement guys out there, you know why it's important. Body cams are standard issue for the vast majority of law enforcement all over the country. People have asked me how I'm so comfortable talking to a camera. It's because every day, all day long, I am on camera. No matter what I do, my worst, my best, it's all captured in full HD with stereo audio. But something, when we have the Axon body cam system, there are different variants of that system. And the way the body cams typically work for law enforcement, take us, for example, right now we're running the WatchGuard system. We will be moving to GTAC. In the WatchGuard system, when I activate my overhead lights in my truck, my body cam turns on. If I am assigned to that body cam, that truck system over there, and I show up on scene and a guy that's with me activates his body cam, my body cam will start doing. There's another option with Axon for integration. There's a spot on the back of this holster where the Axon would go, and when you would draw the firearm, it would activate your body camera. So if you're in a high stress environment where you don't have time to reach up and physically hit your button, drawing your firearm will do it. Taser does the same thing, though Taser is actually a part of the Axon, sphere. So Taser 7s, X2s, Taser 10s, those are all made by Axon. So fun fact for those of you that have to worry about that, it's Axon integrated, which is really cool. So the QD system, let's take a look at this thing. This is probably one of the cooler things of beauty. So this is my QD. And I've got 2 pinch points here at the bottom, and that's how my QD works. Really cool. But what's really awesome about this QD system, and one of the more modular parts of this, is let's say I'm running this belt, but let's say now I need to run a paddle because I need to do investigator style stuff. I can pop this off, and now I'm running a paddle holster with my same retention level that I was running before. Yes, it is a little bulky to be off the side, but very cool all the same. And then a double pinch here at the bottom, pops right off. This is super important for law enforcement because we do things like when we go to jails, we are not allowed to carry our firearm into the jail, secured environment. So I would need to take my firearm off and put it inside of a lockbox at the jail. In order to do that, a lot of times we have to remove it from the holster. I don't typically like that because it means my firearm is not secured. So I will just pop my whole holster system off, put my holster system into the lockbox, which means I basically have this system in the lockbox. My firearm's completely secured. I take this out when I get back out of the jail, pops in there. Pretty cool. So the retention system on this guy, or excuse me, the QD, this is the plate we've got for the QD, and they actually make a spacer if you need to stand it off from your belt a little bit or not. Pretty cool all the way around. So the other thing that we have for options for this is much like Safariland, we have a belt drop system. So the belt drop system is like this guy here. This is actually a low. So you can buy this in 3 options. You can buy the short, you can buy the mid ride, or you can buy the high ride, the mid ride, or the low ride. Something I learned very quickly in dealing with these was I had a mid ride because I'd always run a mid ride Safariland UBL. Mid ride is not a Safariland. In order to get a true Safariland mid-ride, I actually have to run the low ride for this guy. So something to keep in mind, especially if you're looking at keeping the same kind of draw you've always had. If you want that mid-ride, you're going to have to run a low ride from Alien Gear. All right, so if you're still into Safariland though, right? I was heavily involved in the Safariland ecosystem. For example, like here is a Safariland. So this guy is also clear. So the Safariland ecosystem, right? So what I have here is the Safariland Q. Oh, I can't even pop that guy off. My belt's hung up on it. So this is a Safariland level 2. I've got the Nub Mod on here. This is for my 320. It's a cool system. And everybody knows that the QLS system is fantastic. But maybe you're like me and you have a bunch of Safariland holsters, right? This Safariland holster fits this gun, right? This is a duty holster for me. I have my Nub Mod on here for quick index. This fits the X300 pattern, but they make an adapter that'll actually take this guy here and allow me to take my standard Safariland holster and mount it onto any of my QD systems from Alien Gear, which is really cool. That's a lot of forethought, especially when we start talking about law enforcement agencies. Us being able to run and have gear that's compatible with one piece to another is just a huge freaking thing. But why should you buy this? Right? Like if we've got Safariland holsters and you're like me and you're fully bought into the Safariland ecosystem, why would you ever swap out to something that isn't a Safariland? Innovation, man. Like Alien Gear is a extremely innovative company. So this guy here, this is something they've done as an innovation. This is known as the tack strap. This has a rigid pressure band on the inside, goes behind my standard holster. You can also mount this just off of a holster drop, but it allows me to ratchet this down and achieve something similar to that of a tourniquet if I'm under duress and I'm in a gunfight and I just need to get this thing on. Now, in the testing that was done, under Doppler, this thing does provide 100% occlusion. It is not comfortable, but no tourniquet is ever comfortable. I will say, wearing this in a standard fashion on the range, I was on the range with this on for hours and hours and hours, and it was never uncomfortable. It's very stable. It functions just like a thigh strap. It's just a thigh strap that can save your life. Another big one for me, and you know, money where my mouth is. So this is my duty belt. This is my Blue Alpha Gear duty belt light. You will see right here, I am running the same system on here, and same deal. Like I can pop this guy off. I'm running their QD. I've been running this at work for months and months and months and months. Since the V3 was released is when I started running it. I'm impressed as hell, man. One of my favorite parts about this thing, and this is something that lacks, if we say look at something like a Safariland, right? This is my optics protection on a Safariland. So with this guy in here, that's what I'm looking at, right? I don't really have much cover. This is not a protective thing, but I don't really have a lot of protection, and there are a lot of optics that have met a fate of death getting squished inside of this holster, and you can see I just squished that. Now we take something over and say the Rapid Force V3. So the V3, super innovative. I'll scoot up so you guys can see this. So what we're looking at here is this is a locking bail, and we have a hood that is removable depending on the optic you have. On the back of this guy, I have two things. I have a push down lever, and then I have an actual lever that locks onto my ejection port. So when I would come down onto this guy, I'll roll some B-roll here. And you'll see in the video, like where I'm pulling this guy out and I'm actually getting my hand down there and I'm getting really fast, rapid draws. It's really fun. It's really great how functional it is. And to be honest with you, to be shooting out of a level 3 holster at the speed at which you can achieve, which is in that second realm for drawing from level 3 retention to shooting onto a target, is phenomenal. So we check this guy out as far as this goes. If I were to insert this guy in here, right there, I'm actually retained. I have solid retention on this because this is what's locking the firearm. So when I would come down, I would sweep this guy and I would pull the holster up. What I really like is you see my optics kind of nestled in here, right? My optic is completely enclosed from all sides to cover that up and keep it protected, which I think is awesome because optics aren't cheap and fights happen. That is probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen from a company when it comes to doing these things, is just how cool that is. So when we talk about how fast this guy is and the way this system works, when I would come down with my master grip, right, this would be normal, right? So I would come down on this guy, and when I would come down, my thumb would index here, and I would just sweep my thumb back to get my grip, and that would draw it. This system, though it looks spring-loaded, right, is not. If I push slow, I slowly raise that system. So it's not a spring-loaded system like some of the T-Series stuff from Blackhawk where you touch it and the hood pops up. It's not the same thing, right? If I come down and I don't get a good grip, or more importantly, if you're fighting somebody and they come down and they only get a partial on it, and it gets about here, even if they sweep it, it's stuck. Until that clears this thing all the way, and then I can sweep back and catch that lever and pull this guy loose. It's a phenomenal system. Man, is it fast, and it's really, really well done. So I've talked about the optics protection, the speed, which you saw on the other one. It's an incredibly intuitive system, though. Just the way I can come in, and I'll show you on a tan one so we can see this. Just the way I can come in, my thumb comes down, pops that out of the way, and I sweep back to get my grip to draw the gun itself. It's so fast. It is ridiculously fast from a level 3 holster. You don't see that. And I will tell you, shooting head-to-head with a Safariland level 2, with the ALS system here, which is the automatic locking system, locks on the ejection port. It is the same exact lock that I would have here with this lever. I will tell you that only having to defeat this and draw the firearm versus coming down, disengaging, and then engaging that one ALS hood to draw the firearm, I am faster every single time and more consistent out of a Alien Gear Rapid Force duty holster. These things are freaking amazing. So I also love the flexibility in this guy. I love the fact that if I've got their QD systems, I can get adapters to run different holsters to make it work. I love the fact that I could literally go from this on my duty belt, pop this off my duty belt, and now pop it onto a paddle, and now I'm running more detective-y kind of stuff. And then I can pop it off, and it's just a separate piece of the equation, which I think is really, really cool. Something else I like as a gear guy, I am always testing out and changing gear, and the fact that I can literally go from an X300 to maybe putting a Wild on one of my other lights, or a TLR1, or an X400, or a Vampire or something, and still being able to run the same holster is just freaking amazing. I love the fact that I can do that. Something else I think is cool is this is for the June 545, but you notice on my duty gun, I have a Radian ramjet. Not a problem. You can see on the ramjet, I come right down to the end of this guy, and you can see the open for my light here on the bottom. Now somebody's going to be like, your light's not protected. Even on this guy, I run the portal on the bottom, which is the aluminum ring that keeps stuff from accruing in here. Because what can happen if we're shooting grass, dirt, rocks, brass, fall down into these holsters, because after all, this is just a giant freaking bucket that catches things that's open to the environment outside. And what will happen is you can get things that get stuck down in here. And when I go to reholster this and I smash the lens out of my very fancy, very amazing light that I like so much, because I didn't have a way for that stuff to drop through. So that's why you'll notice even on my Safariland stuff, I have a hole in the bottom of mine for a portal. So what do these cost? That's the big question, right? How much money is it going to cost me to get into one of these Rapid Force duty holsters? Now, these are American-made, excellent quality. Like I said, incredibly, insanely durable. To get started into this guy, your basic holster itself, if this is what you bought, is going to set you back $159. It's expensive. It's a USA-made level 3 duty holster. $159 is pretty much on par. So let's say I want to add the a mount to it, right? I can select my mount with my QD system. Let's say this is what I'm going to do. Well, now I'm looking at about $190 for my drop with the QD and the holster itself. Now, if I want to add something super high speed like this tack strap into the entire mix, like this guy for my call out belt, this is my Blue Alpha Battle Belt Light 1.75. This is my call out rig for law enforcement. If I were to run this same thing with this tack strap onto here, I'm looking at $264.87 to get this setup you see here with that holster. Right? It's expensive. This is a life-saving device, and this is the thing I'm choosing to secure and protect my life-saving device, and more importantly, not let anybody else have access to it, because if they take it from me in a fight, I get killed. So super important for me, and this is not an area that I will ever recommend that you skip. Yes, you can go out and buy a $90 or $100 Safariland like this, but you still got to buy the QLS system. You're still going to have to buy your UBL. And Alien Gear offers some cool stuff. They offer like a swivel drop leg that's actually hinged at the bottom so that the tack strap will move with your leg so it doesn't bind. They offer a full drop leg. You can do the paddle variant. You can do a locking belt loop system. You can do the drops in the high, mid, or low. You can run things that they've made super, really cool stuff like these tack straps here for a tourniquet on the fly kind of function, which I like. To me, it's worth the money. Like I said, money where your mouth is. This has been on my belt containing this firearm since, I believe, May. Countless classes, dozens and dozens and dozens of range trips, hundreds and hundreds of hours on duty, being smashed into center consoles and printers and the truck, smashed into doorways, smashed into everything known to man. Trust me, if you got a cop friend, ask him what it's like to walk around learning you suddenly have hips. That's what it's like carrying guns and tasers on the outside of your body. You smash into everything. And this thing has been absolutely flawless. Protected my firearm protected my optics, and I've never once felt unsecured with that on my body. So I'd absolutely recommend to give them a try. They're bar none the fastest retention holster on the market right now. If you don't believe me, go look at Mojo. Mojo's about the fastest draw from retention I've ever seen. That guy also swears by them. So don't just take my word, go watch his. But I can tell you every cop that I've ever put their hands on with this holster has put it on a short list or immediately went and bought it, much like that Radian Ramjet. It is a phenomenal system, and I highly recommend you check this. 100% stamp of approval from Uncle Freedom. You want a duty rated holster that's going to survive anything you've got. It's going to protect your gun and keep you safe and keep it secure on your body. It's as good as it gets, man. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not going to go back to Safariland. These things are just too freaking good. So guys, I am Uncle Freedom. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Follow those links if you want to help the channel, and I will see you next time.